I think if we were to bring everything and that they offer us in-house, it would affect everybody's rates and they would increase significantly, right? Just to put it back on how would the customers be affected, because it would increase our costs significantly.
Hey, Channel Insiders. Welcome back to Channel Insider Partner POV. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso. Today, I welcome back the team from EchoStor Technologies, the IT services and solutions provider catering to data center, storage, and virtualization needs. They're joined by customer Eversource, the largest energy provider in New England, serving 4.4 million customers across Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Connecticut. We'll hear how EchoStor is helping Eversource not only keep the lights on, but innovate new ways to be proactive with drones and AI. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
First of all, Mark, you are a part of what I said was Eversource, which for those who might be located outside of New England, Eversource is the largest energy company in New England, serving Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. 4.4 million customers, all getting either electricity, natural gas, and water, maybe all of that at the same time. Full disclosure, everyone, I am an Eversource customer being located in Massachusetts. I already asked for coupons. Mark said no. So please know that I am getting nothing for this podcast. This is all for fun and for the industry. So Mark, I got to ask, first of all, tell us about your job. Walk me through your day-to-day responsibilities at Eversource. What do you do?
First off, got to put a little note out there that not only could I not give you coupons, I don't get coupons myself. That's always the first question anybody asks when they hear that we work for an energy company. There's no discounts, right? There's no such thing as that. So all the rate increases, decreases, whatever they are, we're feeling the same pain. Back to the question, my title, IT Employee Experience Manager and Energy Computing. So with that, all of the devices, all the laptops, desktops, tablets, iPads, video conferencing devices, anything really that affects the digital experience of our end users, employees, vendors, generic IDs, doesn't even have to be a human, right? My team manages the strategy behind those devices. So the actual devices that are chosen, how we manage them, how we update them, patch them, all the way to how we recycle them and potentially resell them at the end of the day. We control that entire end-to-end process. In addition, we also own our productivity suite. So we manage pushing out those applications and their entire life cycle, all the new features and bells and whistles that we get out of those, as well as all the troubleshooting and tickets that come in for that stuff too. And for now, the IT communications piece of it as well. That's a piece of the team that I actually brought in and created. It was a role that wasn't here at Eversource just a few years ago. So that fell under our IT employee experience as well. And we deal heavily with the change communication pieces of IT in general across the entire department.
So when we talk about 4.4 million customers, obviously that is a ton of people. What kind of infrastructure does it take to handle all of that data that is coming in from all of those people and from all of those accounts?
So from an end user side, we have in total, and this is going to be a number of laptops, desktops, VDI as well, virtual infrastructure. We have a total number around 17,000 endpoints.
Wow.
15 to 17,000 endpoints. So again, not all of those are dealt with by humans. Some of it is automation. Some of it is bots that interact with a virtual session to, perform something that takes a human repeatedly 4 hours. A bot may do it in a half hour. So we do have those sessions too, but about 17,000 endpoints. Again, that's just the end user side, right? Nick would have a lot more information on the back end side when we're talking infrastructure, which would be, we're involved in a cloud data center. We have our own 2 data centers as well. We have 80 plus major sites, which we call them AWCs, area work centers, where again, we have humans, infrastructure, both endpoint and server or backend at. So we're really spread out geographically as well as numerically across all of our regions.
Yeah, and Kate, the way we interact with the actual, homes too, right? That's changed a lot. I've been working with Eversource for, 14, 15 years now. So, there was a time where, and we all remember having our meters swapped on our houses, and there was the meter man who would come and read it on the house. And that's kind of how the data would come back from a field ticket and those things. Then it's evolved to regional data collection as, a car could drive by and gather that data to, now Eversource is cutting edge with these smart meters that are rolling out where not only can we get the information sent right back to us and collect it live, or at least in every 15-minute increments, but we can now see trends and identify where there's spikes in the grid and those things. And so, all of that's put, I don't want to say a strain, but an enormous onus on infrastructure to support the changes to be able to provide a better experience to the customers.
Mark, back over to you briefly. Can you describe your relationship, your and Eversource's relationship with EchoStor? For those who might not be familiar with the relationship that we're referring to today, what do they do for you as a solution provider?
What did they do? It's almost like, what don't they do, right? They do a lot of stuff for us on very many different aspects of our world. They come in and they help us not only provide us with infrastructure, like hard infrastructure, right? So we do purchase infrastructure through them. They have incredibly helpful services that have been offered repeatedly, consulting on things like data center moves or installs, consulting on scenarios, helping with the design or RFP for backup solutions, right? They more importantly dive in, where they're not asked to, right? I'll say that because it's not something that you see on a resume or on any marketing material, right? They throw out cost saving scenarios like co-terming agreements where we weren't aware of it, and say, hey, this may save you some money in the long run, right? So they really touch us as a company in a number of different ways, not just from a hardware, perspective, but also from a services perspective, more importantly, from a relationship perspective, like Nick said, right? You don't stay in a company for over 10 years, especially as a vendor, without establishing some really good relationships.
Yeah, 100%.
The biggest piece that happens at Eversource is, again, with a large organization with all things happening at once, is you're so much more valuable if you can understand the entire mission overall. And I think that if you're a point solution providing partner, like that can be really hard because, while the technology can drive a decision, there's just so many more things going on. I think our understanding of the utility space in general, but also like the inner workings of the company may actually be one of our biggest value adds.
And that is so important too, that trust and that understanding of the inner workings of a company. And I do want to ask a follow-up related to that to you specifically, Nick. But Mark, I do also want to touch on something you said where you said, well, what don't they do? What doesn't EchoStor do for Eversource? But I think anybody listening to this who might be standing outside of the relationship would go, well, don't you have everything you need in-house inside of the company? So when it comes to the kind of need that you have for an outsourced extension of your team with EchoStor, why do you need that? Paint us a picture of what it would be like if you tried to take all of this in-house.
Really good question. I'll put it in a way that hopefully I'm not, jumping out in front of my skis or saying something that I shouldn't be saying. But I think if we were to bring everything and that they offer us in-house, it would affect everybody's rates and they would increase significantly, right? Just to put it back on how would the customers be affected, because it would increase our costs significantly, right? We would love to bring everything in-house, and in an ideal world, we control everything and have all the knowledge that we need. However, we were talking, just before starting recording here, in the tech industry in particular, everything changes so quickly. Mm-hmm. We can't have a guaranteed knowledge of everything that's going on everywhere at every time. We're not built for that. And with that, we need to rely on our strategic partners to bring in this knowledge when it's needed. And one of our strengths is knowing we don't have this knowledge. And again, part of one of EchoStor's strengths is saying, hey, we have it. You may not know it that you need it yet, but we have this knowledge. When you're ready, we'll be here for you.
So that just means I now have to start sending EchoStor Christmas cards saying, thank you so much for not increasing my electricity rate. So thank you very much for that, Nick and team. But you bring up such incredibly important points, Mark. And that brings me back to my question about trust. It's about not only outsourcing to that third-party extension to be able to extend your resources, it's about picking the right one. So Nick, tell me about your relationship with Eversource. I mean, you've known Mark, I believe you said, since before you even joined the company. So why is it so important to you to be able to offer an experience of trust in this relationship to make sure that you're letting them know you know everything about their in-house capabilities, what they need from you, and what they do for their customers? How do you set that up to be something that you repeat not only for the utility space, but the healthcare space and the other verticals that your customers touch?
To the first part of your question too about, how do we say and work so hard to earn that trust? I mean, a bit of chicken and the egg, but, at my wedding, 3 of the tables were Eversource people, right? I mean, people who held my kids. And so there's a very, very personal connection at this point also, but that's not how it starts, right? I think, how it starts, I mean, the origin story, I think, is a good one too, because it's all about the long game. So, initially Eversource, because of their size, because of what their spend is, they were buying direct from all the big partners. So for years, we were doing work kind of around these very big, large direct deals with manufacturer X, right? Whoever it tended to be. And so, obviously we wanted to earn credibility, and that's where you start. That's where all partners start. And so we bring in our people and we do a great job and we help design things. And, we watch the order go to that partner and then we try to support it where there's a problem. And that went on for years, where we were kind of working around everyone else. And I think when the opportunity finally broke, one of the big partners, all of a sudden, several $1 million of equipment lands on a shipping dock. There's not services to install it. There's features that weren't enabled. And, we're standing there side by side with the customer saying, how are we going to make it work? And a thing we take a lot of pride in was, we easily could have been like, now's our chance. Years of working, now we can finally sell our services and we can capture this deal. And that just wasn't the attitude, right? We were like, listen, you guys are in trouble. So we kind of scrambled the helos, got all the resources in there and did whatever we could to kind of help make it work. And I think with that behavior and that mentality and acting as if we were employees, now we're seen as employees almost. And I think that was the beginning of what's become a very long relationship where, again, we sit there like it's our money. Back to saving money on the grid. We treat it like it's our budget, like it's our money, like it's our responsibility. And Mark made a comment before that he said it for the right reasons, but I also do delve in for the wrong reasons. I act like I'm an employee. There's times where we disagree. There's conversations where me and some of Mark's coworkers, like we get into it and it's in the best way. Like we disagree because we all believe so strongly in what's good for the company. And I think you got to earn that place, but I think it's an important place to be, to have a great mutual partnership. And when I did come to EchoStor, right, I was part of Eversource for a while. When I came to EchoStor, this is how we conduct ourselves. This is what we believe. And we met with the EchoStor team. That's how everyone here operates as well. And so, when I changed, and moved to this company several years ago, it was the easiest transition of my life because we all operate like this. So you mentioned before our healthcare vertical, our financial services teams, everyone out there is, for lack of a better word, fighting with their customers to do what's best, and just living it. I think that's a really big differentiator for us. It's easy to capture deals and capture wins. It's hard to really take it on and believe it and take a sense of ownership in what's going on in the companies.
Something you said in a meeting that we had prior to coming on the recording was both of you share that mentality of not just subscribing to the status quo. You don't like the idea of this is how it is, so this is how we're going to do it. And both of you seem to really connect on that mentality. And with that said, Nick, I wonder if I could persuade you into retelling that story where it really is a great example of trust, where you were able to go and solve an issue very quickly over at the Eversource headquarters in your flip-flops. Would you mind sharing that with us? I think it paints such a great picture of trust.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah. So we, obviously we're badged. We work on site. We're in and out of the data centers. We're constantly doing projects, nights and weekends. And so, it was just the way the job was. There was a random Sunday afternoon, I was having a barbecue at my house. And actually, Dave Notarangelo, my peer, was at my house as well. Our kids were in the pool. And we get the alert that one of the big backup systems had gone down, and that the teams were trying to triage it remotely. They couldn't get into it. The system was physically down. The data center's 15 minutes from my house. So we're sitting at the house, we're on a picnic table, with everything cracked open, our laptops, just trying to follow along what's going on to see what the issue is. We assume the manufacturer who supported it would be there first, or the outsourcer. And suddenly we start hearing hey, the manufacturer can be there tomorrow. The outsourcer can be on site in 4 hours. And so everyone's on these calls. And now we're joining out of obligation because we love Eversource. We're there for it. Mark, his coworkers, they're there because they have to be. So all of our friends and family at Eversource, they're on these calls all weekend, right? And we're acutely aware of that. So Dave and I were like, we're badged, we can go in the data center, you guys want us there? And so we got in the car, we drove over, and it's kind of funny because we walk by the security guard 1,000 times. We go in every other day, we're checking in, whatever. But there was definitely a second and a third look when we're there in bathing suits and a Corona tank top and flip flops, whatever. And anyway, finally, the security guard agrees that we are who we say we are. We get inside, we go, and we're able to reset the systems to give the remote teams access to take a look. And, while we're standing there waiting for the handoff for the next team, I've been in data centers hundreds of times, maybe many hundreds of times. You don't realize how cold it is until you're there again, a bathing suit, a Corona tank top, which is long gone by now, but and flip-flops, standing in a data center waiting for your handoff to be able to give them the project over there. But that's the level of trust we have. We're on a call with them. They're like, yeah, go in. If you guys can get in there, go in there. And that's the most sacred place that there is for an IT department.
In addition to that awesome story, I want to turn back to you, Mark, and talk about some of the innovations that you're currently working with EchoStor to bring to Eversource, whether it's ones that you've done already and you hang your hat on, or ones that you're working with them right now. Give me an idea of some of the projects that you're working on together to bring to Eversource.
We're looking at various things from, potential data center moves to new backup solutions, new storage solutions, potential We call it an innovation lab type of sandbox environment, right? So all of these different things that require infrastructure, require architecture, require services to get us to the next level of where we need to be. EchoStore's right there by our side.
IT is always funny because it's like a lot of the projects are very unsexy, right? Really critical things. But I always say
Depends on who you're asking. Depends on who you're asking.
Exactly. Right? And the most important things are always the foundation, right? Those are the things that we're trying to build under the, behind the scenes, whatever else. But I think one really sexy project Mark and I are working on is the drone imaging, the AI project, right? And again, AI is sprinkled across everything right now. I'm a big believer in kind of baby steps on some things, but this one is a pretty fantastic use case. So when there's an outage as a utility company and you need to find out about it, there's this app, OMS, right? Outage management system. That's where you and I, if our power's out, we go online on our phone, we can type it in. That all comes to us. We know where something's going on. The grid can kind of figure it out. So when it comes to like residential power outages and even businesses, it's not necessarily that hard to isolate where it is. So you can send a crew to go look. What's always been a pain for the business is these distribution lines, like the major lines going between states or even going to Canada and areas like that. So you have these huge industrial, like the big tall power towers that you see that kind of run off through the woods, very, very rural areas. So historically, it would be people, either helicopters would fly by and do looks, or people on ATVs would kind of go out and survey these areas and check them out, which is okay for kind of proactive work. It's very expensive and slow for reactive work, right? If we have a major incident, as a pole that's down or a tower is damaged in some way from a tree or whatever, it's hard to figure out where that is because it's like a light in your house. It's on or it's off. You don't know where it's necessarily broken. So the company has kind of evolved to saying, all right, great, we're going to have these helicopters do regularly scheduled visits. We're going to have people on ATVs driving by. We can kind of get a better handle of things. Well, when drones came out, the company did a great job of adopting drone pilots. And we have pilots on staff flying drones, taking pictures up and down these power lines. And like everything in IT and business, you create one solution, you create another problem right after it. You don't see it. Suddenly, Mark's team now is drowning in all of these images that are filling up SharePoint to try to store what's going on. And these images are coming in by the thousands. So it's nice because now we can see, okay, great, here's a live picture. We don't need a person there. We can see pretty quickly what it is. There's a team of people now who have to go through these images and kind of track, okay, look, there's a tree that fell that damaged this line in this way. Let's send a crew to this place. And here's how we can fix it. Well, quickly when looking at that, our Microsoft team was incredible on the AI side, what they were looking at. And they saw an opportunity where they said, all these images in SharePoint, like we can create a way to scan across this, using some of the Power Apps, what we can do in that space to say, hey, look, like let's identify an anomaly or something that's strange in image, right? And kind of start to figure out ways to be, these are reactive solutions, but we can save the people time. So instead of clicking through the images, can we tell them where to look? That's the first stage. So again, crawl, walk, run. So crawl is, hey, image analysis team, at least you know where to look. Then you can make your own determination on what to do from there. The next phase that's coming out after that becomes, hey, like not only can we tell you where to look, let's tell you what it is and what the recommended course of action would be. So we see this tree down, this car hit this infrastructure unit, this flooding caused this damage, right? Things we're seeing in the news all the time. There's a lot of damage that happens that you don't see. It's far away. And it doesn't necessarily make the news. So there's that part there. The next phase is going to be really interesting where we can say, hey, let's use some proactive pieces and say, we're watching vegetation grow into these big distribution lines. We have 11 months, 12 months until we need tree work there. Let's work that into the tree work schedule. So instead of having emergency reaction, emergency work, we can have this as part of our regular schedule, guarantee better uptime, pay less for maintenance and less for work. Again, translating back to us paying lower electric bills, which would be really helpful in the end. But it's a really exciting project that's on the radar all the way up in the organization.
Drones are very cool. And I will give one extra shout out to that team. There's actually in town a brush fire that started up last week. It's over 100 acres in size. And that engineering team actually is helping look at the containment, right? Look at the edge of that fire right now by live streaming back to, its handlers, its pilots, and the firefighters to try and understand where to send the helicopters to drop water. Right. So incredibly important, non-related to electricity and Eversource at all, but volunteering their time and resources to go help with that effort. But back to your original question, one thing that EchoStor helped greatly with was actually something that we're trying to get off the ground yet, not officially approved, meaning we're not officially part of this strategy yet. But what they did was help us quite a bit with a theoretical exercise in determining, kind of looking more at our strategic data center efforts. And EchoStor really brought a lot of expertise to the table in that conversation to help guide us to make a decision. I'm not going to say what decision we made just yet, but I will say that EchoStor helped quite a bit in terms of shaping our enterprise vision of what we should be doing to kind of take us into the next, I won't even say the next generation, but like the next 50 years of where our data centers could and should live.
We're just getting started. Come back on Tuesday for part 2. Thanks to Nick and Mark for joining me today, and thank you for watching or listening. You can check out all episodes of Channel Insider Partner POV on channelinsider.com or watch on youtube.com/channelinsider_news and trends. You can also listen to us as a podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. Come connect with us on X or LinkedIn at Channel Insider or with me at Katie Bavoso. And of course, like, subscribe, and follow wherever possible so you never miss an episode. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.